May 1944. A German guard at a Nazi munitions plant outside Bordeaux stares at a worker's identity card. The photo doesn't quite match the face. For 3 seconds, he studies the man in front of him. Then he waves through him. Inside the 4 loaves of bread the worker is carrying, 40 kilograms of plastic explosive. Inside his shoes, detonators. And the man wearing those shoes was executed by the Nazis 11 months ago. He jumped from a moving Gestapo truck, stole a Nazi staff car, and vanished. Now he's back, walking through the same front gate, 4 days in a row, past the same guard, to destroy the one factory the German war machine could not afford to lose. The RAF sent hundreds of bombers, thousands of tons of bombs. The production lines kept running. One 20-year-old French aristocrat is about to finish the job with stolen glasses and bread. But the insane part is that this was his second mission. The Nazis had already condemned him, beaten him, and scheduled his execution. He asked to go back anyway, and when they caught him a second time, he escaped dressed as a nun. How does a condemned man destroy a factory an entire air force couldn't touch? And why did he keep returning to the country that wanted him dead? The boy is 15. The school trip is to the Bavarian Alps. The chaperones bring the class to a fortified compound built into the side of a mountain, and the boys are told to line up. A short man in a uniform walks down the row. He stops in front of a French aristocrat named Robert de la Rochefoucauld. He raises his hand. He pats the boy on the cheek. It is 1938. The man is Adolf Hitler. The boy says nothing. The La Rochefoucauld name goes back 900 years. Crusaders, dukes, courtiers to French kings, a coat of arms older than most European nations. The family has survived revolution, restoration, 2 republics, and a world war. Robert is the latest generation in a long chain of people who have learned to wait out for empires. He is 5 years from dropping out of a plane to destroy this man's empire from the inside. In 1940, Germany overruns France in 6 weeks. His father is interned. Robert is 16, with a Gestapo file and a family name that the occupation cannot ignore. He takes a forged identity card. He joins the underground. He is not interested in survival. He wants to get out of France so he can come back with weapons. Then, in 1942, he crosses the Pyrenees on foot with 2 downed British airmen. Franco's police catch them at the border and intern them at Miranda de Ebro, a camp full of refugees from a war Spain has officially decided not to fight. Robert speaks almost no English. He decides this is irrelevant. He tells the camp commander he is British. He is 18 years old and he is bluffing his way out of a Spanish prison. The bluff works. The British embassy extracts him. London takes one look at the file and routes him to a building in Baker Street, where a man in plain clothes asks him if he would like to learn how to kill someone with his hands. This is the Special Operations Executive. Churchill calls it the Ministry of Ungentlemanly Warfare. They teach Robert to parachute, to set demolition charges, to break a man's larynx with the side of his hand, to forge identity documents, to live for months under a false name without ever slipping. He turns out to be excellent at all of it. Before the drop, he is brought to meet Charles de Gaulle in person. The general looks at the 19-year-old saboteur and says one sentence: "If it is for France, go ahead." June 1943. A plane crosses the channel at a low altitude. Robert clips on a parachute, waits for the green light, and steps out into the air over occupied France. He blows up a substation outside of Avalon. He sets charges along the rail lines that carry German troops east. The mission succeeds in every metric. Then he is betrayed. The Gestapo picks him up, beats him in a basement for days, and loads him into the back of a canvas-topped truck bound for the execution ground. He is 20 years old. The truck rolls through streets he grew up in. Behind the canvas flap, an SS sergeant smokes a cigarette and counts the minutes. How does a man jump from a Gestapo execution truck and not die in the bullets? And who is waiting for him at the end of the road? The truck slows down at a corner. Robert is not bound at the ankles. His hands are tied loosely behind him. The SS sergeant lights another cigarette. Robert works the rope against the truck bed and feels the knot give. He shoulder checks the canvas flap and hits the road shoulder first. The truck does not stop immediately. Bullets crack the air above his head as he rolls into an alley. He runs. He has no map, no contacts, no idea what city he is in. He turns a corner and stops. Parked outside a building flying a long red banner is a black staff limousine. Swastika pennant on the hood. Keys in the ignition. The driver is somewhere inside, probably drinking coffee with the Wehrmacht officers whose car this is. Robert gets in. He drives a Nazi command car through a city full of Nazis. He passes checkpoints. He passes patrols. Nobody stops a black limousine with that flag on the hood. He ditches the car at the edge of town and walks into a train station. He locks himself in the bathroom of a Paris-bound train and stays there for the entire journey. When the wheels finally stop at the Gare d'Austerlitz, he steps onto the platform and realizes he is alive. Later, asked what that moment felt like, he uses 3 words: drunk with freedom. The SOE pulls him out across the channel. He is 20 years old. He has been condemned to death and walked it back. The rational career move is to retire from field work, take a desk in London, train the next generation, and survive the war. He asks to go back. Now. The SOE has a problem. A munitions plant outside Bordeaux, the Poudrerie at Saint-Médard-en-Jalles, has become a critical node in the German supply chain. Royal Air Force bombers have hit it. The damage from the air is visible in reconnaissance photographs. Craters, collapsed warehouses, a perimeter chewed into rubble. But the production lines, the precision machinery, the actual heart of the plant are surviving the raids. The Germans rebuild. The shells keep coming. A bombing campaign cannot finish this target. The briefing officer in London is direct about what is needed. Someone has to walk into the factory under a stolen identity, place charges by hand on the specific machine components that matter, and walk out before the timers run down. Someone willing to parachute back into the country that just sentenced him to death. Robert says yes before the briefing finishes. He spends the spring of 1944 in England preparing. He memorizes the floor plan of the plant. He studies the daily routines of the workers. He learns which gates are watched by which units and at what hours. He practices placing demolition charges blind against scale models built from aerial photography. By May, he can assemble a detonator in 11 seconds without looking at his hands. May 1944. 11 months after his execution truck. He clips on a parachute for the second time and steps out over occupied France. The chute opens. The wind drifts him into a field outside Bordeaux. A resistance cell is waiting in the tree line. The first thing they hand him is a loaf of bread. It is hollowed out. Inside is a brick of plastic explosive molded to fit the cavity. They handed him a second loaf, and a third. They hand him a pair of glasses with thick black frames and a stolen factory identity card belonging to a man named Pierre. Robert is not Pierre. The photograph and the face do not match. The cell knows this. They are betting that the guards will see the glasses before they see the man. Why would London send him back into the country that just sentenced him to death? And what kind of factory survives an air force but falls to one man on a bicycle? The plant is called the Poudrerie Nationale de Saint-Médard-en-Jalles. It sits 11 kilometers outside Bordeaux, ringed by perimeter fencing, watchtowers, and a daily population of roughly 600 workers. Before the war, it produced French gunpowder. Under occupation, it produces high-grade explosives for the Wehrmacht and components destined for the V weapons program. Royal Air Force Lancasters have visited 4 times. Each time, the buildings take damage and the production lines do not. The British want it gone, permanently. The resistance cell that meets Robert in the field outside Bordeaux has been preparing for months. They have located a worker named Pierre whose physical description is roughly compatible. Same height, same hair. Most importantly, Pierre wears thick, black-framed spectacles every day. The glasses obscure the upper half of his face from the cheekbone to brow. The cell has forged a duplicate of Pierre's factory identity card. The factory reissues identification cards every 2 months as a security measure. The forgery is only valid inside a narrow window. After that, The photograph on the gate logs will not match the new card, and the next guard who looks twice will not look away. They have one shot. 4 days. Robert puts on the glasses. He cuts his hair to match the photograph. He spends an evening watching Pierre walk, watching Pierre greet the gate guards, watching Pierre hold his lunch pail. Pierre is given a one-way trip out of the region for his own safety. Robert becomes Pierre. The bread is prepared the night before. Loaves baked normally, sliced lengthwise, hollowed out, packed with malleable plastic explosive, and sealed with dough paste. To anyone holding it, it weighs slightly more than bread should. The cell hopes the guards will not be holding it. The shoes are made by a resistance shoemaker. Outside, they look like ordinary work boots. Inside, the soles are hollow chambers containing detonators wrapped in cloth, so they will not rattle on the cobblestones. Morning 1. Robert walks to the factory gate. He hands the guard the forged card. He carries a paper sack containing a single loaf. The guard glances at the photo, glances at the face, finds the glasses convincing, hands the card back. Robert walks into the factory. He spends the day at Pierre's assigned station, doing Pierre's job, eating Pierre's lunch out of Pierre's pail. At a precise moment in the afternoon, he excuses himself to the latrines. On the way back, he diverts. He pulls the explosive from inside the loaf, slips a detonator from his sole, and places the charge against a primary turbine housing the British engineers identified from the floor plans. He returns to his station. He works until shift end. He walks out the gate, carrying an empty paper sack. Morning 2. Same gate, same guard, the same routine, the same loaf, the same glasses, the same forged card. The guard nods him through. The second charge is placed against the secondary feed manifold. Morning 3. The guard begins to recognize him. A small comment, a remark about the weather. Robert answers Pierre's accent, which he has been practicing every night with the resistance cell. The third charge is placed at the structural pillar between the propellant blending hall and the loading bay. Morning 4. The final loaf, the final detonator. The fourth charge is placed against the master electrical distribution board. He has now smuggled 40 kilograms of plastic explosive into the heart of the plant, one paper sack at a time, past the same guard through the same gate, wearing the same stolen glasses. He sets the timers as he walks out. Robert exits the factory at shift change, lost in the crowd of departing workers. He walks to a section of perimeter fencing the cell has marked, scales it, and drops down on the other side. A bicycle has been left propped against the fence post. He pedals away from the factory at the pace of a man with somewhere to be and no reason to hurry. He is 2 kilometers down the road when the first charge goes off. The explosion shakes the trees. The second charge follows, then the third, then the fourth. In a sequence the British engineers designed to collapse the production line in a specific order. The turbine fails first, then the feed manifold, then the central pillar, then the electrical board. The buildings that the bombers could not destroy fall in on themselves from the inside out. A column of smoke rises over the Gironde for the rest of the day. The resistance cell receives Robert at a safe house outside the city. He is 20 years old, and he has just destroyed a target that an entire bomber command could not finish. They open 3 bottles of wine. He sends a single radio message to London. The next morning, he wakes up with a hangover and the news from the BBC that the poudrerie at saint-médard-en-jalles is offline. Production will not resume during the war. He is meant to be extracted immediately. London expects him on a Lysander within the week. He does not get on the plane. D-Day is 23 days away. The resistance needs every operative still standing. Robert decides to stay. Why does a man who has just done the impossible refuse to leave? And how long before his luck runs out in front of a German rifle? He stays through the summer. Normandy is bleeding. The resistance is moving weapons, blowing bridges, killing collaborators. Robert is in the middle of all of it, under his 4th or 5th identity of the year. The Gestapo files he still have his face but the wrong name. In late summer, an informant gives him to the Germans. He is arrested at a safe house in the Bordeaux suburbs and transferred to Fort du Ha, the city's military prison. The Germans interrogating him do not know they have caught the same man they condemned to death the year before. He is operating as someone else now, a saboteur called by another codename, with another forged history. They know he is resistance. They know he is a saboteur. That is enough to shoot him. They schedule his execution for the morning. He has night. The cell has a single oak chair, a wooden table, a slop bucket, and one barred window. He works the leg of the table loose against the floor, slow and quiet, until it pulls free in his hand. He sits on the floor in the dark and waits. In the early hours of the morning, he begins to convulse. His back arches. His arms snap rigidly. His head strikes the floor at irregular intervals. Foam at the corner of his mouth, produced by chewing the inside of his cheek. A guard on the corridor hears the noise and walks down to check. He looks through the slot. He sees a prisoner mid-seizure, eyes rolled back, body bucking against the floor. Standing orders are that condemned prisoners must reach the execution ground alive. He unlocks the cell. He steps inside. Robert is on his feet before the door finishes. The table leg comes down across the side of the guard's head. The neck snaps. He drops. Robert strips him in under a minute, pulls the uniform over his prisoner clothes, takes the sidearm, takes the keys, and steps out into the corridor. Two more guards round the corner at the end of the hall. They are not expecting a man in their own uniform to walk out of a condemned cell. Robert fires twice. Both go down. He has killed 3 men in under 5 minutes inside the building that was supposed to kill him. The uniform is now wet at the collar. He cannot walk through Bordeaux dressed as a German with blood on his back. He clears the prison wall, drops into an alley, and runs to the address the cell had given him for emergencies. A factory worker named Marcel opens the door. Marcel's sister is a nun at a nearby convent. Marcel does not ask questions. He produces a habit and a wimple. Robert puts them on. The aristocrat who Hitler patted on the cheek walks through Nazi-patrolled Bordeaux dressed as a nun. He walks past 2 patrols. He walks past a checkpoint at the bridge. The soldiers do not look twice. Nobody questions a young nun walking briskly toward the river at midday. He crosses the city. He reaches a resistance safe house outside the perimeter by nightfall. London hears about the escape over the radio that evening. They want him out. They have a plane lined up. He refuses again. D-Day has landed. The Wehrmacht is pulling north and east. The resistance is rolling up collaborators and ambushing retreat columns. Robert spends the autumn moving with a resistance unit through the Gironde, blowing bridges, ambushing convoys, freeing prisoners. In a small village in early October, an SS unit corners him in a farmhouse with 3 of his comrades. 2 are killed in the firefight. Robert is captured for the 3rd time. The SS do not waste time on a prison cell. They walk him out of the farmhouse into the field beside the road and put him against a stone wall. They set up a machine gun 10 meters away. They line up behind it. This is the 3rd execution. There is no truck to roll out of, no cell door to wait for, no nun habit folded in a drawer. There is a stone wall, a machine gun, and a sergeant raising his hand. How many lives is one man allowed before the math catches up? And what does Robert see in the field that the SS does not? What Robert sees in the field is a line of cypress trees 100 meters to his left. He sees the angle of the road. He sees the position of the SS staff car parked next to the machine gun. He has not stopped calculating since they put him against the wall. The resistance has been tracking the column since the farmhouse. They are in the cypress trees with rifles. The sergeant's hand drops. Before the gunner can fire, the first rifle shot from the tree line takes him in the throat. The second shot hits the loader. The machine gun jams its operator. The result is the same. The remaining SS turns toward the trees. Robert is already running. He clears the road, drops into a drainage ditch, and crawls until the rifles stop. For the 3rd time, he should be dead. For the 3rd time, he is not. The resistance unit gets him to a safe house on the coast. He is filthy, bleeding, half-starved, and 21 years old. He sleeps for 3 days. When he wakes, he asks what the next mission is. April 1945. The war is collapsing toward Berlin. Most of France is liberated. Pockets of German troops still hold the coastal fortifications around the Gironde estuary, including a hardened casemate at Saint-Vivien-de-Médoc that controls the river approach to Bordeaux. Aerial bombing has been unable to crack the concrete. The Allied advance is stalled around it. Robert volunteers. He paddles up the estuary at night in a rubber dinghy with a small team, plastic explosive packed against his chest. They land beneath the casemate. He kills the sentry with a knife. He places the charges along the structural seams the engineers identified. He paddles back out into the dark while the timers run down behind him. The casement goes up before dawn. The river approach is open. The Germans pull back to their last position. A week later, the war in Europe ends. A mine explosion caught his leg during a clearing operation in the final weeks. He spends the surrender in a field hospital with a shattered knee. He is 21 years old. He has been condemned to death 3 times. After the war, the French Republic awards him the Légion d'honneur, the Croix de Guerre with palms, the Médaille de la Résistance, and the British government adds the Distinguished Conduct Medal. He marries. He has 4 children. He becomes the mayor of Ouzouer-sur-Trézée, a small canal town in the Loire Valley, and serves for 30 years. He writes his memoir in 2002 and gives it the title La Liberté, c'est mon plaisir. Freedom is my pleasure. Most of his SOE records were destroyed in a Baker Street fire in January 1946. He is almost absent from the official British history of the Special Operations Executive. He exists in the historical record because he chose to tell the story himself. He dies on May 8, 2012, the 67th anniversary of the German surrender. He is 88 years old. The boy on the school trip stood still while Hitler patted his cheek. He spent the next 7 years tearing Hitler's empire apart with his hands. The Nazis executed him 3 times, and 3 times he came back. The first time he escaped with a stolen limousine. The second time he escaped dressed as a nun. The third time his friends shot the firing squad before the firing squad shot him. Between escapes, he destroyed a factory that an entire air force could not bring down, using bread, stolen glasses, and 4 days of nerve. The Germans built a war machine to be invulnerable. They never accounted for the man who would not stay dead. If you enjoyed this story, there's a group of prisoners who outsmarted the SS not with weapons, not with a tunnel, but with gasoline and tobacco, a trick so simple it had no right to work, against dogs trained to never lose a scent. That video is on screen now.